Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kurt. I'm from Microsoft, and I'm just really here to introduce Gary Severino from Quest. Quest is one of our gold sponsors for Ignite, so we're very grateful to them. And you're going to have the opportunity to get a good informative session today about their products. And without anything more, go for it, Gary.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thanks, Kurt. Firstly, thank you very much for taking the time out. It's 5 o'clock. You've got something to go to directly after, so I really appreciate having an audience to talk to this afternoon. So the topic, or the session today is going to be around a tagline that I came up with as part of the synopsis: Bimodal IT, rubbish or relevant. It's interesting when I started looking into the topic. There are divided views around what it means. So we're going to really be exploring that a little bit. Before I do go further into the presentation, though, I am going to be live demoing some products, and I'm going to kick off with one now. And I won't talk to this too much. I'm really just going to click a few buttons, but we're going to come back to it and provide some detail around what I'm actually doing here. So hopefully not too many moments of silence. Of course, I tested all of this at least 3 or 4 times today to make sure it all works. There we go, okay. So just a couple of buttons, check boxes. Okay, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on. So what am I? Cool, all right, so I'll kick off. Just in terms of some introductions, I think I've got a few too many forward there. Slow pointer. Introduction. My name's Gary Severino. Sorry. So I work for Quest. I've been around with Quest for about 6 years. For those of you that don't know who Quest are, you might be familiar with the legacy company called Quest Software. So Quest Software has been around for over 20 years. Was acquired by Dell at one point, and we became Dell Software. Still the same set of solutions and products. I think we lost a bit of the awareness, I think, at one point around who Dell Software were in relation to Quest. And Dell has recently divested us, so we are Quest again, and we're private equity. Much of the same products and offerings as before, with a couple of other things as well bundled into the solution set. Just a couple of mentions of people in the room today. At the back, we've got Danny German. I like to call him our data protection futurist and evangelist, and he's YouTube famous. We've got Andrew, Bill, who hasn't appropriately addressed for the session this afternoon, and Jen and Kirsty as well. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone there. Bimodal IT. So Gartner came up with this in 2014, and it is really, they've defined it as the practice of managing 2 separate but coherent styles of work. One focused on predictability and the other on exploration. So it's not really ambiguous, it kind of defines what it is there, but looking at it a little bit further, it really talks to those 2 modes. So mode 1, all about optimized, predictable, well understood. And this guy, I trust him, he looks dependable, and all about stability. So that's something that most organizations already strive to achieve, that mode 1. When we look at mode 2, it's all about exploratory, the experimenting, and at times uncertainty. And I've got this picture. That's actually Danny. This is back in time. This is the futurist that Danny was. He actually predicted that he would be bald one day. But that's the futuristic image there. And this is all around the agility. So being able to implement new solutions rapidly into a business. So delving into it a little bit further, so rubbish or relevant. So I've seen lots of cool things at Ignite so far in the keynote. Lots of things, interesting things that I didn't even know were offered, even as part of the Azure platform. Cognitive recognition. They spoke about AI, and that all kind of plays into that mode 2. Organisations want to look to be able to adopt the latest and greatest. All the buzzwords around cloud and analytics. So how do you actually get to that point? And where do you need to be today to be able to adopt all the latest and greatest technologies? really, Mode 1 speaks to the fundamentals of IT. A lot of customers that I talk to, they all subscribe to a framework. There's a lot of common terminology. ITIL is obviously the key framework that organisations subscribe to. It talks to change management, incident management, event management, availability management, problem management and root cause analysis, identity management, and business continuity planning. So these are I've just picked a couple of the topics out of really what's in that framework. But this really speaks to what organisations strive to under that Mode 1. So when we talk about bimodal IT, I'm just asking the question, is it really something new? So in organisations today, Mode 1 being all about stability. There's just other names for it really. I've heard it called Workplace, BAU, Run IT. And when we look at what Mode 2 is represented by, digital transformation, engineering, DevOps. So that's pretty common. I'm not sure what it's like in your organisations, but certainly with all the organisations that we interact with, they're already doing this today. There's typically the run team and then there's the projects team. So projects implement stuff, hands it over into run, and they continue to maintain that for the business. And in that Mode 1, following the framework, that best practice framework around ITIL. So can you successfully execute Mode 2 just in isolation? So if these two guys, Mode 1 and Mode 2, didn't talk to each other, can Mode 2, that agility and these initiatives, be executed without ever consulting on the run team or that Mode 1? I've seen it done and it has its impacts. It can be done pretty poorly, but really from my perspective, you can't have Mode 2 without Mode 1. So Mode 2 is dependent on that Mode 1. So just an audience poll and just a show of hands. So this is a question that I ask organisations and customers that I go to see regularly. This is one of the first questions I usually ask is, what's the most critical platform or application in your environment today? Does anyone want to hazard an answer to that? 365. Okay, yep, okay. From an email and productivity perspective? Okay, anyone else? SAP. Okay, SAP, yep. Anything else? Okay, yep, that's the answer I'd be going for. But when I ask the question, it's typically, it is always typically the productivity application, it's the line of business application. So looking into that a little bit further, I ask, well, how do your users get access to those applications? What's the first interface that they go through? First point to be able to actually get access, and it comes back to the directory. Usually authentication takes place. An employee or user comes into the office, they pull out their laptop or they log onto their workstation, but that's what they do. They log on first before they can get access. Whether they're at home, logging into a web portal, usually authentication is the first point of being able to access anything within the environment. So really, Active Directory, we could say is the most critical application. If you think for a moment, what would be the impact in your organisation if Active Directory, simple, understated technology, no one really likes to think about it, it's not cool, it's not a buzzword, but it's hugely relevant. And it is really the backbone of your organisation. So again, if you take a moment and think about all those dependencies, everything that hangs off it, the security, the applications, the authentication, the authorization, there's quite a significant impact and dependency on Active Directory. So Active Directory has been used to authenticate since 2001, so it's been around for a long time. Few stats here, 90% of organisations today rely on Active Directory, so that's globally. So huge footprint, 500 million active licenses of Active Directory with 10 billion daily authentication requests. And this is probably a pretty alarming statistic, but 95 million accounts are under attack each day. So there are people, bad people out there, even internal people in organisations that try to exploit Active Directory or gain access, elevated rights to Active Directory to be able to do malicious activity. And then we introduce the cloud. When we start to talk about Office 365 and Azure AD adoption, Office 365 adoption is growing at a rate of 70% year on year. I was surprised by this, but Azure AD has over 10 million tenants. 75% of companies greater than 500 users already sync their on-premise AD to Azure AD. Active Directory typically, Active Directory on-premise is still typically the authoritative directory for users. So again, with the dependencies on Active Directory today within your organizations, and as you start to embark on Office 365 or that Azure AD adoption, ask yourselves the question, how important is your on-premise Active Directory? Another thing I hear a lot is that customers want to move to Azure AD with potentially the thought or the prospect that they can remove their on-premise directory. I don't think it's definitely not at a point where you can just disband in your on-premise directory. It doesn't offer the same structure as Active Directory on-premise today. From a security perspective, the group policies, just the way permissions are applied, your data, application access. It's a pretty big task to think that you can move away to a pretty flat structure that's offered by Azure AD. So how important is on-premise directory? Active Directory, it's still hugely important. So every organization and customer I talk to today, Active Directory is still the backbone of the organization. So consider this. If your cloud strategy depends on Active Directory, are your current Active Directory disciplines sufficient? So again, going back to the mode 1 and the mode 2, can you execute mode 2? Can you execute mode 2 successfully without considering mode 1? So in this example, mode 2 is your cloud strategy, and mode 1 is your disciplines around your on-premise environment today. So if you can't, what's the potential damage? So Active Directory, again, becoming unavailable, affected, impacted in any way, which meant it had a flow-on effect or impact to your end users. What's the damage in your organizations? So Active Directory, your most critical asset. So again, AD isn't cool. It's not a buzzword. I don't think it was mentioned in the keynote. I think it was mentioned once, but nothing really extensive. So we really talk about a back to basics approach. This might be slightly boring in some regards because the technology of AD is often unthought of, and it kind of sits in that corner, and someone has to manage it, but it's not at the executive level, or it's not something people are thinking about on a daily basis. So, but again, in being able to execute mode 2, all the initiatives, allowing organizations to be innovative, you need to take a back to basics approach with some of the core foundational pieces of infrastructure in your environment. So a few back to basics approaches. So when you're embarking on those mode 2 initiatives, Cloud 365, there may be the opportunity or the must to have to restructure your current Active Directory environment. We see a lot every day, organizations acquiring other organizations or spinning up directories for security reasons. Thinking back to when AD was first introduced, it was designed and built on old, outdated NT principles. So we still work with customers today that have domains for an Active Directory forest and domain for every state to be able to segregate security, or they spin up a new directory just for application authentication. So what do you need to do to streamline your Active Directory today to make it easier to be able to adopt cloud? Recovery and availability is definitely a big topic. Again, if you think about what the impacts would be if Active Directory were to become unavailable. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Management and security, obviously there's native ways of achieving all of these initiatives, but from a management and security perspective, are you confident in the way you manage the security around your Active Directory today? Do you know who has elevated rights or access in AD? Have you got a strong process around refining people's rights into the directory? Auditing and reporting, from a management and security perspective, do your processes, whatever your process is to apply the security for your support staff within the organization, are you able to accurately capture everything that's going on within the directory? So again, critical piece of infrastructure. There's still a lot of organizations out there that have absolutely no visibility of anything that's going on within Active Directory. So that can lead to, do you even know if people are logging on and doing the wrong thing, or information potentially being leaked because they've got too many rights? And monitoring and performance, just the simple ability to be able to monitor the performance of Active Directory, specifically Active Directory, not the broader Windows estate, but application level metrics to give you deep insights into Active Directory's performance. So this is where Quest comes in. So we have a business unit within Quest, which is Microsoft Platforms Management. So this is the area that I represent and I specialize in. So the first question around restructuring, how many Active Directory forests or domains do you have in your organizations today? I always get pretty surprising responses to this, but usually it's always more than one. And worst case, I've still got customers that have NT in the environment. So what we offer from a restructure perspective, for those of you that might know the legacy Quest organization, we were very well known for our migration solutions. So covering a wide array of source platforms, even from Lotus Notes, GroupWise migrating to Exchange or Office 365 now, but also Active Directory consolidations and migrations as well. So very comprehensive capabilities around the migration. And the key to executing any migration, even an Active Directory consolidation, is around facilitating coexistence of end users, whether it's from a messaging or directory perspective, but enabling them to be able to work in any environment during the transition. From an end user perspective, they don't care what's going on in the background with technology, as long as they can log in and do their work, regardless of major changes that are going on. From a recovery and availability perspective, we have a solution that not a lot of organizations know of, but we have a product which is called Recovery Manager for AD Forest Edition, which covers all spectrums of Active Directory recovery. So if I work from this side, around the simplified domain and forest recovery, there is a well-documented Microsoft process which is called Planning for Active Directory Forest Recovery. It's a 58-page document, 40+ steps that details every single step that you need to go through on every single domain controller in your environment that you're recovering in the event that you have a full forest outage. So that's something that we have an automated solution around, which completely automates every single step and concurrently recovers all domain controllers in your environment, drastically reducing the recovery timeframes required to make AD available for your end users again. We've POC'd this with customers. One POC I was involved in, which is a financial institution, natively they had built a plan that would take them 18 hours to recover. So pretty significant for a financial institution. During our POC, we were able to bring that down to 53 minutes. So significant time savings there. So there's going to be a cost impact associated with downtime. There could be brand and reputation impacts as well. But it isn't just the full forest, it covers all the granular recovery scenarios as well. So whether you have a process to just recover a single user or an attribute or group policies, this will give you a graphical interface to be able to make it easy. So you don't have to decide whether you're going to do it, you just can do that. Additionally, it is patented technology, so you won't find many options for performing this full forest recovery or the extended capabilities in a solution. Sure.
Question?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what sort of situation bring the whole forest down?
What's that, sorry?
What kind of situation
Would bring the whole forest down? Well, I mean, I guess talking about AD as a platform, AD is highly available, it's distributed architecture, but the underlying common piece of Active Directory is its schema. So schema corruption, it could be through a third-party schema extension that's gone wrong. It could be applying a Microsoft schema extension if you're going to 365 or moving to the latest version of Exchange. Typically require a schema update. But one that I found interesting, I was talking to a customer in New Zealand, and they performed a full forest recovery in 2014. What had happened was they built an isolated Active Directory environment, and it was production mirror. So they'd recovered their production environment into an isolated test environment, obviously for pre-production testing of changes. Unfortunately, what had happened was that one of the domain controllers that was 6 weeks old now in that isolated environment was somehow introduced back into production and corrupted the directory. So they picked that up at 8 o'clock at night, and it took them 12 hours to recover natively, which they were lucky. If it happened during business hours and it took 12 hours to recover, if your organisation is offline for that period of time, it's pretty devastating. But you know, full forest recovery or full forest outages, that's the extreme. There was something, an incident in the news not too long ago, late last year. It is in the news, but I won't mention any names. But they had an engineer that had accidentally deleted the primary DNS zone in the directory. And they were a customer-facing organisation, financial organisation, which meant it made online banking, the web application, unavailable for end users. And they also, people weren't getting paid. So it was a bit of a big deal. But they were able to recover, authoritative recover using, performing an authoritative recovery of the primary DNS zone using our solution. And they were up and running pretty quickly after that. The thing that I didn't mention in there, part of the capability is a virtual lab wizard. So having a pre-production mirror environment of your production directory is it's a pretty good place to be in if you can get to that level. That way you can accurately test changes. The solution does have the ability, a wizard-driven ability, to take a snapshot of your production directory and port it into an isolated Hyper-V or VMware environment, which gives you that good test bed for any changes. There is a snapshot here of the recovery window, so that might look familiar to what I launched early on. So I have launched a full forest recovery, so the aim will be that by the time we come back to that window, we'll have finished. In this screenshot, 3 domain controllers that have been fully restored within this domain in a time of 34 minutes. And what it comes up with post-recovery gives you the ability to perform a forest health check. So it'll tell you that replication's working, that authentication's working, that trusts are in place, and that the domain is fully functional again. So from a management and security perspective, we've got a solution that's been around for a long time, which is Active Roles. And we've had a lot of conversations at the booth today. We've got a lot of customers that have this solution, which is called Active Roles. The simplest way to describe this is think of it as a security layer around Active Directory. So abstracting the security and the delegation out of Active Directory and putting it into another layer that everyone needs to go through in order to get access to Active Directory. So we say natively, don't natively delegate any access in Active Directory. Perform all your delegation through this security layer, which has predefined access templates in it. So right from a user can just reset a password through to full forest access can be configured granularly through Active Roles. Additionally, we abstract the management of AD away from Active Directory users and computers and into web interfaces, which I'll show you as well. Through that abstraction into web interfaces, we can isolate the view that a person has to Active Directory. So whatever they've been assigned access to is what they see. So you don't have access to the entire directory. It has an extensibility capability within the solution. So it also does have a synchronization engine, which allows you to sync out to Office 365, Azure AD, a bunch of other Windows platforms. So to allow you to simplify the provisioning process or the lifecycle management within the Windows estate. So I'm going to run you through that as well in the demo. So provisioning out to Office 365 from a single console through a single form, really. So while it has traditionally been all around the on-premise Active Directory management, hybrid AD management is a thing now. So the ability with organizations embarking on that cloud journey, adopting cloud solutions, still doesn't take away from the on-premise footprint and having to manage that footprint. But it'd be nice to be able to do it all in one. And Active Roles does give you the ability to both provision on-premise into the cloud from an Office 365 Azure AD perspective, but also being able to provision out to cloud applications. So if Azure AD is your cloud application authentication provider, you can make it really easy to provision access to those cloud applications as well. So from an auditing and reporting perspective, we talk a little bit around IT GRC. So there's really 3 streams to auditing and reporting. number one is knowing what's going on. Not only knowing what's going on, but in real time and with real-time alerting. So having visibility of all the critical changes in the environment in real time and being able to apply real-time alerts to what you think is critical in the environment. The second box there around security compliance, baselining and analysis. Can you at any point just understand what things look like today? So having the ability to gather from multiple platforms, Active Directory, Exchange, file systems, and being able to build a snapshot of what users have access to and what their rights look like today. And thirdly, around native log collection. So it's not something we see customers want to do a lot or have the requirement to just collect everything, but it does come up. SIEM is a hot topic, so security information and event management. There's a solution out there which seems to be everywhere at the moment, and they do it really, really well from a SIEM perspective. We don't compete in the SIEM space, but we have the capabilities to allow you to gather those logs. But we overlay our solutions with something called IT security search. So it gives you keyword search functionality of all the repositories where we're holding information. And we'll also have a look at that. So from a change order perspective, I guess just an architecture slide that I wanted to put up. Really the aim there is to show the comprehensiveness of support for the Windows landscape. In a very simple deployment, it works off the premise of a coordinator, which talks to the agents on servers and also to the database, picks up event information and relays it straight into the database. Worth noting, it doesn't rely on native auditing. So with the agent that's deployed, it allows us to capture what we call the 6 Ws of auditing. So everything specific and relevant to an action is captured in one event. Which makes it a lot easier to identify what's going on, a lot easier to report on. So the who, what, when, where, why, and workstation information. Who being the AD account, what was changed, so specifically someone was added to a group policy was changed here. When, date and time, where the change was made, being the domain controller, the Exchange server, the file server where the change was applied. Workstation information is the actual end user device, so the workstation name and IP address where the user connected to initiate that change from. So IT security search, I just threw this up on the screen, but this is our keyword search engine. We will look at this as part of the demo as well. So from a monitoring and performance perspective, just a couple of screen grabs here. I spoke earlier around metrics specific to AD as an application. There's lots of monitoring solutions that available that can do a lot, but sometimes it's hard to just get specific information around what you want. And Active Directory is no exceptions to that. I've heard other platforms are just too noisy, they're hard to configure. Our Foglight for AD platform is just specific to AD. So it only gives you the metrics which are relevant to Active Directory and being able to identify the performance of the service, that critical service within your organization. So that's really wrapping it up. So just a back to basics approach. I understand it's not terribly cool or as cool as some of the things you might have heard in the keynote. Definitely not as cool as cognitive recognition, but it's critical for organizations to really function today and be able to execute on their Mode 2 strategies. We really talk about that back to basics approach. So with that, I'm just going to throw in across to the demo now. First thing we'll do is we'll just have a look at the recovery and see where that's at. Of course, there's an issue logging on. No, I haven't done that. No. I've locked my account during a live demo before, but not this time, I hope. Is everyone enjoying the conference so far?
Are we meant to be able to see your screen?
Not yet, no. I'll log on first.
Password 1.
No, it's not that. 1, 2. Right, so I'm just reconnecting my lab servers. All right, so my forest recovery is still going, but that's fine. It's almost two domain controllers have successfully recovered. One left to go. It's at 28 minutes, so we'll come back and have a look at this as well. So with that, one of the first things I thought I'd show you is active roles, the web management of Active Directory. So I'm logged on here as a user called John Doe, and I have delegated administration of the directory down to a particular OU. So if I logged on here as an administrator that had more rights, I would see more. But in this particular view, my visibility of the environment is restricted only to what I have access to. So just expanding further. So obviously this is Active Directory. There's more than that in this directory, but really I've only got access to manage two OUs there, IT and Savvy Solutions. So I have also got open here my Office 365 Admin Center. So I've got a few users provisioned in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete Paul Adams through the Active Roles web interface. I'm going to provision a user as well. We'll run the sync task and we'll see him not so magically appear in here, but show that the functionality is there. So just select Paul there and I will delete that user. Select new user. So really what I'm demonstrating here is being able to manage a hybrid environment. So AD lifecycle management or on-premise lifecycle management, it's pretty easy when it's contained within the environment, but how are do your processes today allow you to extend that out to the hybrid environment? There's a misconception, I think, that adopting cloud will make things easier, but really you're adding another platform, so you're introducing complexity. So it's how do you mitigate the complexity and still make it efficient and easy to manage a hybrid environment. So I'll just chuck some details in here. So I'm going to pick on someone in the audience because I know you don't have an account here. So I've entered first name, last name. Active Roles does also give you the ability to automatically populate fields. So the little lightning bolt there is automatically populated the logon name, the username based on criteria which we've predefined or pre-configured in this provisioning template. So we've just got it configured as the first initial of the first name followed by the last name. If there's another user in there with the same name, we'll append it with a digit. So I'll just click next there. Also, we've restricted what information can go in. So one of the hardest things I've found is maintaining the integrity of information within the directory. Active Directory is used a lot for reporting purposes. So there's a lot of other platforms that hook into Active Directory. We've got a unified communications analytics platform which aggregates information from multiple sources, but it uses all the information in AD to be able to report on, so to understand usage patterns within an organization. But if you've got 10 different variants of a department name, how are you actually able to pull accurate information, reporting information and insights from within the organization? So within here, simple drop-down menu, I'm just going to select a department. Also worth mentioning here that these department or the office location can also define what a user has access to. So the fact that I've selected accounts payable there, that would define that user is put into specific security groups or has access to specific resources in the environment as they relate to this person's role. I'm just going to click next there, but what we can also do is perform field validation or mandate that information needs to go in fields here. So there's a corporate violation here which says I need to put in a value for the manager name. So I'll just go through here. I can't manually put that in, so I know that this person's boss will be Adrian. Select that, click OK. And also I need to put in a mobile number. If I just click on that information there, there is a specific format which I must adhere to. So begin with a plus sign followed by country code, area code, and only contain numerals there. So again, we're restricting the information. I've put my number in there before, so I'll just click next. We will automatically generate a password as well, and the option there to change password and next log on is already defined. Click next. We'll have the option now to create a mailbox. So in this particular environment, I've got on-premise Exchange, but I've also got Office 365. So I can skip past this. You can lock down policies for specific users to only have an on-premise mailbox or an Office 365 mailbox. It's all in the way that you define the policies dependent on who that person is or what their role is. So it's pretty flexible in that regard. We're just going to click next there because we don't want to create an on-premise Exchange mailbox. We want to create an Office 365 user. Just put in a name there. It's already populated with the domain name for my Office 365 tenant, which we configure via our add-on for 365 within Active Roles, which automatically hooks into our tenant, populates all the workflow required for the synchronization engine, automatically generates a password. The password at this point is irrelevant. Part of the synchronization and ongoing synchronization is password sync as well. So we're syncing from on-premise Active Directory out to Office 365 as well. Additionally, we have the ability to control licenses. So at this point, Active Roles is in control of what a user has rights to, what they've been assigned a license for within the Office 365 platform. So within here, I've got Office 365 Business Essentials, so I'm just going to go through and tick the boxes for all. But we can define, again, what different users have access to. And click Next. The last option that's going to come up is around cloud applications. If you think about the way that users would get access to cloud applications, where Azure AD is the authentication source, it'd be done through security group membership. So you'd be populating security groups on-premise and syncing that out to Azure AD, which would give a person rights to that application. So within this provisioning policy, we're actually stipulating what a person's going to have access to. So if I tick any of those boxes, that person will ultimately be put into a security group. You might know that you can't add a person into a security group during provisioning, but what this is doing is writing a virtual attribute. And there's a workflow that runs that populates group membership based on an end user's virtual attributes. So it's a pretty easy, non-complex way to be able to provision out to those cloud applications through one single interface. And that will be it. What I'll do though, just as that's finishing, I'm just going to change screens. I'm going to go over to my synchronization engine. So the Active Roles synchronization service, I should have actually said at the beginning of this session that some of our solutions are still branded Dell. So we are going through a rebranding exercise to bring them back to Quest. So the provisioning rules are predefined when I configure the add-on connector in Active Roles, which automatically connects to my tenant and then goes and just pulls all the rules together within the synchronization service. I don't have to guess what attributes I need to map to give a user an Office 365 Exchange mailbox only. It's all done. And ticking those boxes will write the required attributes on the Active Directory object on-premise and synchronize that out to Office 365. I'm just going to click Run Now. There's a bunch of steps there that I've got pre-configured. I'm just going to do a full run. That's going to run for a little bit. And while I'm waiting for that, worked out well because that forest recovery project has completed successfully there. So in 29 minutes and 47 seconds, I've recovered an environment which, in this case, has 3 domain controllers. The number of domain controllers is largely irrelevant. Because we're concurrently recovering all domain controllers at the same time, if there was 3, 6, 9 or more, it would be around the same time because, again, it's pushing out that recovery execution to all domain controllers at the same time. So I'm going to click that Check Forest Health. It's going to go through and ensure that everything is running okay. Oh, there's the button there. The screen's I can't make that. Hopefully, I can guess the button that I need to click there. All right, there we go, it's running. So it's going to validate again that the domain controllers are accessible, Active Directory replication is working, and that authentication, read master, and GC operation roles are all working. So users can be created, and we actually create a user account, log on with that account to validate that the forest is accessible, and that's come back at 100%. So if you don't have a disaster recovery practice around Active Directory today, it's probably worth investing a little bit of time, at least looking into it. Every time I like to ask the question, I think the best response or the most official response I've had from a customer was that they had the 3 R's. Sounds very official, but that's reboot, restore, resign. So most organisations I've found that they don't have a firm practice or a process or a well-documented process, at least around Active Directory recovery. So I'll just go back to my synchronization now. So it's just going through, it's going to check it all. Once that's done, I'm going to commit those steps as well. So that's done. And we can identify in here that at this point here it says objects to be created 1. So I know I've created 1 account there. So it will go and create. Don't have to manually run the synchronization, I'm just doing it for the purpose of this demonstration, but that runs on a schedule as well at whatever frequency you decide. So, of course, it always all works when I tested it other times during the day. It does say objects deprovisioned in this run, so there's 1, so I know that it's going to have removed the account that I deleted. There is an error, so we'll just check what that is. So it hasn't liked the account that we've created. It might have timed out if my connection isn't the best here. I'm going to go back and rerun that. Try it one more time. While I'm doing that, we'll go back and we'll have a look and validate that it's deleted that Paul Adams account. Okay, so it actually has created that John Watson account, depending on what is processed first. If it was processed before the deletion in that synchronization, I don't typically run all the tasks at the same time. But it can come back with that error. But that's fine. Paul Adams is gone. John Watson has been created. And you can see that the account was created with the required Office 365 Business Essentials license as well. So that's license management taken care of. I don't have to then go in and apply or assign a license to that user in Office 365. Last thing I'm just going to show you is IT security search. So again, it's a simple keyword search engine across multiple repositories of our supported solutions. So Change Auditor, Enterprise Reporter, Intrust, and we also have integration with Recovery Manager for AD within the solution, which gives us the ability to perform a granular recovery of a user object directly from within Intrust. So just hitting enter there, it's just going to go through and just build a blanket, return all events for everything that's going on in the environment. I'm just going to do a simple search based on the user account that I used for the actions that I performed today. So JDoe, filter on that, and it's going to return everything as it relates to that user. So along the top here, we've got some categories, so computer, events, files, groups, OUs, shares, and users. So users represents that user account in AD. If I click on that, it will give me all the information, and we'll have a look at that as well. But down the left here, it's every event as it relates to that user JDoe. So I'll just filter this on today only, and we're just going to get a snapshot of what I've just done today. So we can see here that for the time zone of this event, for the account that I created, it's captured everything as it related to the provisioning of that account. So I can see here I've got a user account that was created, and it's given me all the information out of change order and still applied it in the same structure with that who, what, when, where, why information of all changes. this is the concept here is sometimes things happen, you don't know exactly where to start or what to look for. So using a breadcrumb of information, you can go through and perform context-based searches. So anything in blue here is really just a link to extend and further filter your search. So just go back to the home page. I'll just put in search for another user. No, I got that user wrong. So I've just put in a username there. I'm just going to go straight to the user just to give you a view of what comes back when you look at that user object from an Active Directory perspective. I'm just expanding on that user. So what you can see here, it's returned specific information from Active Directory. So we're gathering this information and putting into a reportable repository. We can see direct reports, what members, what security groups this user is a member of. But just what I want to point out on the left-hand side there is we've got some options to look at the activity initiated by that user, files and folders owned by that user, and files and folders where this user has permission. So if you want to understand what a particular admin or a user is doing in an organisation, you can easily go into IT security search here, put in the username and just easily identify the activity that's been collected by both Change Auditor and Enterprise Reporter. So that kind of just wraps up the demo portion. Does anyone have any questions at this point? No, we've wrapped up the session. All right, well, final thought from me then. Going back to basics only strengthens the foundation. So again, you know, having those two modes, it's pretty common in most organisations, but we rarely see mode 2 executed successfully without at least some consultation on mode 1 practice and that best practice adoption within organisations. Now before you go, just a couple of things. I'll skip past this slide, but with Spark After Dark, please, if you could complete your session evaluation ASAP, and also please remember to collect your wristbands for tonight's event. So I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for attending the session this afternoon and giving up your time. Thank you.